Sierra. Have you ever found someone in your life to be very difficult? Maybe difficult to get along with. Maybe they are resistant, slow, checked out. Just a challenge for you to either work alongside or to even get along with personally. In today's episode, I want to talk about how these people could be different, not difficult. I would say over the last 3 or 4 months, with the amount of travel that I have been doing, I have been exposed to a lot of different cultures and leadership environments and styles. And during this time, it has forced me to really slow down and think about what I tend to see as difficult, whereas I really should be slowing down to consider context to determine what makes this place or this person different. So today's episode is called Different, Not Difficult: Why Context Matters in Leadership. So as I mentioned, I've been traveling a lot. And let's see, so far we've been to Georgia, Missouri, Texas, Idaho / Washington State, and Utah. I think that's it in the past 2.5 months, with upcoming trips to Canada and New York as well. And Missouri. We've been to Missouri. So all of these places, not only have we been exposed to different cultures as we just explore, try different restaurants, get to know different people in the area, even down to the level of hospitality at the hotels, airports, just very different in every location. But it's forced me to slow down a little bit and ask more questions. So a lot of times I feel like we fall into a trap where we confuse difference with resistance. So I know that there are plenty of leaders that I have come across who have been placed on a team where that team functions very differently than any team they've worked with in the past. And so maybe that team processes things more slowly, or maybe they speak up less in meetings, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe they ask more questions in meetings. Maybe they're hesitant to commit to things. Maybe they're not trusting. Whatever it is different than what the leader has experienced in the past. So they immediately view it as resistance or being difficult. Well, as I've gone into all these different locations, I've kind of observed how people respond to different leadership styles and realized that if I would pick up some of the staff from one location and plop them under the leadership of a different location, how drastically different their experience might be. Some of them absolutely love the style of their leader and are quick to tell me that their success is because of the person leading them and what a positive impact they've had on the environment. But if you took a person of that same exact style as a leader and plopped them in a different location, the staff would not respond that way, because we can quickly interpret things very differently. So for example, if we have a leader that doesn't immediately voice their opinion, well, is that because we don't have their buy-in? Is it because they're not driven? They're not engaged? They're not competent? They just don't care about us? What is it? Well, what if it's actually none of those things? And maybe they value deliberation over speed, and they like to take time to process information and consider all the options and all the data and all the stories of how people have been impacted in the past before they speak. Maybe there's someone who likes to process things internally first before externally processing them. So they're just not ready to share yet. It's not that they're not engaged. Maybe they prioritize accuracy over urgency. So it's not about speed for them, it's precision and making sure that they're making the right decision. All of these things are up for interpretation. And so I think it's been really valuable for me to walk into these different locations, having no background knowledge of these people, and just observing the way they interact, their body language, in individual sessions, their perceptions of one another, even during group activities when I have them identifying behaviors and characteristics in one another, the way they see themselves and others see them can be very different. So this shows up in a lot of different ways, this opportunity to slow down and really observe. I'm observing generational differences, and it's something that comes up a lot. Those general personality differences or communication styles that we talk about when I bring up DISC. So these DISC assessments that I've been doing allow me to really dig deep quickly and get to know a person. And we've been exploring what motivates different people. Well, sometimes that's a combo of how they were raised and their life experiences and just how they're wired in general and what they value. So it's been interesting to hear in a specific place what are the commonalities amongst their drivers or motivators or values in that area compared to in a different state. I've seen over time the differences in remote teams versus teams that are fully in person or that are hybrid. That's always interesting. There are so many different pieces of this that I feel like we should be taking the time, instead of labeling behavior, consider the context first, because I think that changes everything. So we know when it comes to communication that you could have the best of intentions, but when you deliver that message, if it is not received in the way you intended, it was not successful communication. So leadership isn't judged by what you meant, it's by how it lands on the other person. So that behavior can either quickly build trust or break it down. Where one person appreciates directness, and it means that you have clarity as to where you're headed and what you need. For someone else, it feels like aggression to them. In some of the cultures, speed, that urgency, is considered decisiveness. Whereas others, if you have too much of a sense of urgency, they consider it carelessness. This has been an interesting piece to be able to compare on the DISC assessment the 12 behavioral characteristics rated from strongest to lowest score. In each location, where does urgency fall and how do they react to that score of urgency? Is this a place that appreciates urgency and they see a lower urgency score and immediately want to know how that they can improve that for their location? Or when they see a lower urgency score, do they value it and say, "Ooh, I'm glad our team is slow and methodical. It's more important that we are accurate than urgent." Isn't that interesting? Just such a different response to the same exact piece of data. In one location, when people are silent, it might mean they're in agreement with what's going on, or otherwise they'd speak up, right? As in other locations, if you're silent, then that must mean you disagree. Well, why is that? Why is it so different? So I think that another big piece of this is the emotional intelligence, and that's why I love that our DISC reports have emotional intelligence built in. because that is key in your interpretation of these different situations and how you're being perceived, how others are reacting to you. Context. When I say that context matters, what am I talking about? So I'm talking about the cultural norms in the area. I have to pick up on that. I have to learn that quickly. I'm taking it all in. Matt's taking it all in. We reflect on what we're noticing around us. And I mean completely different environments. It's very evident. Even in the same organization, just a different location. So, what they've identified as the company values are the same. Their mission is the same. They're headed in the same direction, but the norms may not be. Context might be generational expectations. I know that I have been asked to come in a lot to talk about generational differences, but really focusing on what I call the multi-gen advantage. So, being able to tap into the strengths of each generation and really consider what those might be, rather than focusing on the differences and the frustration and someone not being wired the same way as you, or approaching a task in the same way you would, or valuing the same things. Context is personality wiring, which is obviously different for anyone that you talk to, and that's why why DISC is so helpful to me, because I can look at a one-page graph and I pretty much know everything I need to know about how to deliver a message to that person, if I'm going to slow down enough to methodically do so. Just because I have the information doesn't mean I always follow it. You have to keep that in mind too. And you're also not walking around with everybody's DISC assessment results. And this is why understanding DISC and the observable characteristics and how you can modify your behavior on the spot to meet someone's needs, why that's such a valuable skill set, because it's not realistic to, have memorized or even have access to everybody's personality or communication style results. Context, stress levels. What are people experiencing here? Well, they're behaving this way because this is what they're experiencing at this time. This is how it compares to what they've experienced in the past. Why might that create stress for them? Why might they have a stress response when they are stressed? What does that look like? Do they feel valued? And what can you do to show them that you value them based on what their motivators are? Context can look like power dynamics. That's always interesting to see. Authority and decision making and how they interact with one another, and what quote unquote power looks like in their engagement with one another. So, all of these things really guide how you might arrive at the differences between you and the people around you, and how to really adjust to those differences. So I really want to zoom in on one example and dig deep into it, because the thing that comes up all the time is that urgency piece, because we all seem to function on a different timeline. So my high D's and I's like to move really quickly. The D's want results immediately. The I just is excited by new shiny things. They like to move quickly as well. But my S's and C's like to slow down. They're more methodical. S really focusing on how their decisions impact other people, and C really focused on the logic behind their decisions. But understanding that a friction point being the time that it takes to do something, to make a decision, to take action. A fast response might mean I'm really committed and I'm jumping in head first, and I'm competent. I have the information I need to make this decision. Maybe immediate action means, I've bought into what we're doing. But that is just through one lens. Instead, on the other side, as mentioned with the urgency example, some environments value being thoughtful and really pacing themselves. I've heard in a lot of the different locations, when things are rolled out, they're rolled out quickly, and then we just fix mistakes along the way. And we would much rather roll it out more slowly, be proactive, predict what might come up, and prevent it rather than moving too quickly and having to go back and make so many changes and fix errors and deal with frustration and so on. Totally valid. I get that. But again, based on how I'm wired. So just because fast is familiar to someone doesn't make it better. Just because slow is more familiar to someone doesn't make it better. So really what we should be asking is, what pace is appropriate for this context, for this situation? What is the appropriate pace? Not what is your preference, what is my preference? Oh, we don't have the same preference, one of us is wrong. Instead, what does the situation call for? And so I feel like the more we ask questions about what the situation is calling for, rather than identifying whose approach is better, or why this leadership style might be more effective, or this personality trait or communication style might be better just because it's mine, how that's not really true. So we often make assumptions that the way we've communicated something is clear. It's very clear. It's obvious. I communicated it. The way that I choose to prioritize things, it's very logical. I obviously would make a logical decision. And the way I approach work is very normal. Other people should do it the same way. We might think that. We might all think that. So automatically it's going to create friction when someone else does it differently. I brought that up in a recent episode about learning to delegate and share the load, and knowing Matthew's style is completely different than my style. We do not approach things in the same way. And that's taking a lot of time. It has taken a lot of time to get used to it. I think I'm used to it. But it can create friction, and it did in the beginning because I had this mindset that my way was the right way, my speed was the right speed, my attention to detail was the right attention to detail, and so on, and his was wrong because it wasn't like mine, and he thought the same about me. Why are you so uptight? And why does it have to be done this way? And it doesn't have to be perfection, and there are other ways to approach this, and so it took time. This is something that I've had to really learn as well. It can be frustrating. It can be disappointing when someone doesn't understand why you're doing something the way you are. This is why I believe DISC and Working Genius are so very helpful in the organizations that I work with. And I will say that and say it again. I'm not saying it to sell it in the least. I just think even if you do an online search and learn about these concepts and attempt to digest them and understand how it's impacting your interactions with the people around you, that's all I care about. It's just a reminder that the difference is not a deficiency. It can actually be very valuable. We just can't assume that our way is the right way. So a question related to this could be, am I addressing a real issue here, or am I just defending my comfort zone? I've always done it this way. This is my comfort zone, so I'm going to defend it and protect it because I don't want to take the risk of doing it a different way. Or is this actually a big issue? And what is its impact? So what I have really been reflecting on is moving to observation instead of immediate intervention, instead of quote unquote fixing all of the people, fixing all of their problems. It's not about fixing. Instead, we need to notice. And guess what? That is going to require restraint, not immediately commenting on your observations, not, immediately judging based on your perception of the situation. It's going to require some emotional regulation. It's going to require curiosity before moving into correction. And I think that's where a lot of leaders are having challenges, especially if they are someone who already has a sense of urgency and wants results right now. They immediately move into correction instead of asking questions. So, me being in an environment that has been unfamiliar has forced me to ask questions and remain curious and only observe, because I can't just rely on my instinct and gut feelings. I have to learn about these people in this location, how they have been raised. I love asking questions about their background, their journey to where they are today. And my goodness, I've heard the most interesting stories. And when you take the time to ask the question and learn the story, it starts to make sense why they make the decisions that they do and why they might be perceived the way they are by others. So we have to stop trying to correct immediately. We have to stop immediately labeling people and judging them based on their decisions, their actions. So we should be asking questions like, what am I missing here? What context might explain the situation, why the behavior is happening? What assumption am I making right now that I shouldn't be making? These are the types of things that I've been asking and taking the time to discern. That does not mean that we're lowering our standards by slowing down and asking the questions at all. We're not changing the standard. We're actually just improving our awareness in relation to that standard, and how we can better connect with people to help them reach that standard. That's the difference. So you're adjusting your delivery. You're not compromising your clarity around it, or your level of expectation. You are just determining, how do I change the way I deliver this based on what people need from me. That's what this is all about. So, if you find that there are some differences happening around you right now, it could be in family dynamics, it could be in your team, it could be anywhere. What I am challenging you to do based on this episode is slow down and question and bring awareness to what might be causing the behavior. What context am I missing here? And realize that the behavior that's frustrating you might not actually be the problem. You might be the problem. Your interpretation might be the problem. And I think we arrive at that by asking more questions and staying curious. Going along with that, today's Leadership Unscripted actually, I thought matched this pretty well. So those of you that haven't tuned into an episode before, Leadership Unscripted is a submission from a listener of a challenge they might be facing that they'd like some feedback on. If I have a guest, obviously, we would unpack it together, but I'm solo today, so I'm going to attack this one on my own. But I thought that it matched this episode well. So this one says, I know 2 of my team members aren't getting along, and it's starting to affect morale. I keep hoping they'll work it out on their own, but it's not improving. How do I step in productively? So you can probably see how this connects, because you look at these 2 people, they're not getting along, and chances are they are looking at some situation, some interaction that they've had in the past, and something occurred there that maybe someone was offended by. A message wasn't delivered in a way that someone was receptive to. Whatever it may be, there was some sort of issue that created this problem. So that's why I think really looking at context and realizing that that person's approach was different than yours doesn't mean they were trying to be difficult. So when I look at this, number one, I would stop waiting. If you think it's impacting morale, don't wait any longer. I think you need to name what you see happening. So I've noticed some tension between you and so, and I want to make sure I address it before it impacts the team further. You can have individual conversations with them. I would not immediately bring them together. I would make that statement to each person. And I personally have found value in sitting down and talking to them directly and asking questions, asking their perspective, what is contributing to the tension, what outcome are they really looking for, what are they hoping will happen with the relationship, the friendship, whatever it may be, the working relationship. And what you might notice when you have the individual conversations are totally different interpretations of the same situation, misunderstandings. This person sees that that person did this, and I think they did it on purpose to upset me. I'm totally making this up, but you get the point. And you're pointing fingers at the other person when really there's a misunderstanding, or there's a style difference between the two, or their priorities aren't in alignment with one another, or they're making assumptions. Really, you can spotlight that when you have your individual conversations, which can help you to really guide and facilitate a meaningful conversation when you bring the two of them together. So in those separate conversations, I would see exploring that and really focusing on each of them and their intent. What maybe if there was one specific situation that occurred, what was their intent in that specific situation, and what do you think the impact was based on how you chose to handle that situation and how the other person chose to handle the situation. I think it's helpful to get the individual to take responsibility for their part of it, not spend the entire time pointing a finger and blaming, but instead really reflecting on their contribution to the misunderstanding or the challenge between them. And then I think it's time to facilitate that guided conversation where it's not to determine who's right and who's wrong. That's not the purpose of the conversation, and I think clearly stating that is important. But it's to how to strengthen the way in which the two individuals are working together. So we need to get a clear understanding what the intentions were, what was the impact, and how can we move forward. Maybe agree upon norms for working together in the future. Lots of different ways to approach it. But in summary, high level, I think we need to make sure we don't just ignore it, because by ignoring it, that's like giving permission for it to continue. So I think addressing it one-on-one first, say I notice how it's impacting the team, it needs to be handled, talking to each one and then bringing them together and facilitating a conversation that's forward-looking, forward-focused. How can we move forward together? I think that would be the most powerful approach. Hopefully that's helpful. If you also have a challenge you'd like to submit, please shoot your message into info@branchingoutpodcast.com. Whether it's a topic you want us to cover, a specific situation, or challenge you're facing, we would love to cover that for you and make sure you are getting value out of the time that you're spending listening to this podcast. I also wanted to take a moment to do my segment on leadership in the wild. For my listeners that are very loyal and have been here all along, you know what this is. But for my new listeners, this is just an opportunity to focus on someone who is leading very well, who is, in my network, I've seen them approach leadership in a very effective way, and it's powerful. So I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge Lauren Klaus. Lauren Klaus is at the head of Winchester Rescue Mission here locally, and I've had her on an episode before. And when I had her on the episode, we got to spend a little time together. And during that time, we kind of talked about some of the things from our personal lives. And she took the time to give me a very beautiful gift in the form of a book for me and a specific book for Caleb. And the book that she had given to me to read is one of her favorites, um, and it's Unreasonable Hospitality. And I really, truly enjoyed it because I have been able to immediately apply it to some of the events and stuff that are going on that we're scheduling, we're planning. Tri-State Leadership Summit. How can we apply this content? But it goes above and beyond that. You know, she, from our conversation, was able to really connect with me through this book, share something that had been meaningful to her. She wrote me a beautiful thank you note. Just so very kind, so very appreciative of the time we had together. And I could just see how she has taken the concepts from that book and applied them to her life to go above and beyond and make things really great experiences, to elevate experiences. She certainly did not have to give me a gift. She certainly did not have to write me a card, but she took the time to do both, and they were very thoughtful. And I just know that that wasn't a one-time thing. That's the way she approaches everything. So I really appreciate you, Lauren Klaus, and your unreasonable hospitality. Now I have the words to put to it, whereas before it was just kindness. So thank you for that. I appreciate you. I see what you're doing, and it's really having a great impact on our region. The fact that you do this everywhere you go, and that unreasonable hospitality, even specifically at the mission. So thank you. Well, I want to bring things to a close here today. In this episode, I hope you were able to discover some opportunities for you to look at specific people and specific situations a little bit differently, asking more questions rather than making judgments or assuming that someone is being difficult. So if this episode gets you to slow down a little bit and reflect on that, even if it's reflecting on your interactions with one specific person, or if you find yourself coming into a new environment and it's the perfect opportunity for you to just stop and take it all in, and ask questions and not make immediate judgments based on how the group works together, I think that then it's probably good timing for this episode. If you think someone else would find value in listening to this, please share it with them. And also make sure you have subscribed so you're getting notifications every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time when we drop a new episode. I am excited about some of my upcoming guests. I was just emailing with a few of them right before I came on here. I am, when I have guests on now, trying to remember to ask them to make recommendations of other guests. So I thank Rich Weller for doing that. It allowed me to reach out to several folks and start getting them scheduled. A lot of exciting conversations coming up. A lot of really great leaders in our area to highlight and really branch out and look at some different perspectives. Just a reminder of why we're here and why we do this. So Branching Out with Sierra was created to take leadership content, leadership skills, and apply them to everyday life, because we do all have the opportunity to have a positive influence on the lives of others. Not lies of others, I meant lives of others. We can also have a positive influence on the lives of others. We want to make sure that you feel equipped to lead yourself effectively and lead others effectively, and really hope that we are able to bring folks on that can add some other perspectives, bring some strategies forward. And then also, I enjoy doing these solo episodes from time to time. I don't always enjoy talking to the camera by myself, but I enjoy them because they're the opportunity for me to reflect solo about some of the things that I've been noticing in the work that I've been doing with my clients as well, any patterns in the challenges that come up for them, and what I think I can be sharing that might help everybody out a little bit. So Thank you for joining. I hope to see you next time. We'd love to hear from you if you are interested in getting involved in any capacity, whether you want to be a guest. There's an application on the website for that, branchingoutpodcast.com. If you want to get involved as a sponsor a episode or sponsor a season, there's so many different ways to get involved there. So if you feel like your brand is in alignment with what we're doing here, we'd love to hear from you and get you involved. Thank you so much for joining, and until next time, keep branching out.